So to us, fake news is kind of just like any story that a journalist or reporter takes and puts a spin on the factual truth. That could be like for a variety of reasons. It can be to make one like their candidate look good. It can make the other candidate look bad. It could, like you said, clickbait earlier. Just trying to get people into the story. Big like headlines. That's what sells. That's what brings people into the articles and stuff. So. Anything that just has any sort of spin on it at all.
Very, very catchy headlines.
Yeah.
So anything to get somebody to say, hey, that looks interesting.
Yep, yeah.
And then try to read
it can be like major details of a situation or like minor details. Some stories could be completely fabricated, like all together. So there's like definitely different like levels of fake news, I think. It's just anything with any sort of non-truthful twist to it, I think is, yeah.
And it also has a lot to do with what they choose to report on. They can choose to leave things out or choose to add things that most people would overlook. So I think it just depends on where they lean a lot on the political spectrum and just like how that will influence the like view that specific news station is trying to uphold. Like it has a lot to do with just their personal opinions as a company, and they kind of take that to try to make others believe exactly what they believe, I guess.
I got a point. I was just gonna say, you could also talk about like thumbnails. I think for a lot of articles or like video like descriptions, I think also can give it away a little bit. Where there's like certain cues here and there. I think on some imagery. When you read the title, obviously there's like sites I think like Clickhole, which purposely do this like really bad. Like they like make like really bad articles or something like that. People are like, oh boy, let's look at this and watch. I think BuzzFeed was also guilty of this at one point too, when they made a lot of like clickbait articles, I think as well. So just like picking up these cues, I think in general is something that we can also work on. I think in the future to get a better understanding of it.
Can I talk? Hi. Okay. I think like there's a lot of like opinionated articles that like sometimes people just like assume it's fake, I guess, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. When I think of fake news, I think of like, I can't think of a specific article or website, but like on Facebook or like Twitter, there's a lot like celebrity fake news, like so-and-so died today or so-and-so did this today, and it's not necessarily obviously always true. So I just think, and then people see the main headline and they take it and run with it, and then it escalates very quickly. So I think that's a huge issue in social media world, at least.
And I think probably one of the best ways to kind of protect yourself from falling into like the fake news trap is just kind of just have a variation of like the outlets that you get your information from. If you go to like just one and you believe absolutely everything that you read from this particular website or editor or whatever it is, then I think you're definitely kind of fall into it. You just think like, oh, this is what's going on. This is the only truth that's happening. But if you like have a variation and go to several different sites, you might see the same story multiple times, and every story might just be a little bit different. They might talk about different statistics. They might focus on different statistics. They might talk about different people that were there. So I think if you do that, you just get a much more complete idea of what actually happened. Versus just one lens that's just like, just kind of tunnel vision. So.
Yeah, very, very true. I would say you could even. I would say one point that I would encourage people to look into for the future is to just not base their news off of just one particular subscription that they follow. So I definitely think like for localization, like for me personally, I tend to watch a lot of Fox 59 and a little bit of Wish here and there, Wish 8. But I also read the Indie Star on the occasion too, and I make sure that there's at least like major key points, that those points that I deem to be major key points are consistent, and I make sure that with the little bits of information here or there, it kind of just varies on how deeming it makes the actual article or the post that these news publications are discussing and reaching out towards. And I definitely think that what we could do in the future is we could just simply take a little bit of time and look into the actual story itself before we, jump in and assume just, you know, what's new, what's real, and what's now deemed as fake.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, 'cause that's the thing is like I don't think there's ever going to be just an end to fake news. I think that's just kind of the different, like that's just the generation that we're into now. Yeah, if you're going to protect yourself from it, you really got to take it onto yourself, like you were saying. You got to it's going to put a little bit of effort in. You got to go to just different sites and just kind of fact check everything. So yeah, like it's kind of on the user. You got to kind of look out for yourself. So.
Right.
I know a big thing, we even discussed it in class when we covered everything going on in Syria. You had to really take what you read with a grain of salt because everyone was reading the same information, but all of the different news sources had so many different statistics. Like some people were saying that over 70 people were killed, and some people were saying that nobody knew, and I mean just the plain statistics were so different, which is not like they weren't intentionally trying to make it fake. It was just nobody really knew what was going on and tried to be the first to have some kind of clue, I guess.
Speculation.
Yeah, so you have to be able to take it with a grain of salt and wait it out until, you know, people actually know what's going on, because even if you're the first to report doesn't mean that you're the most accurate report. So you just have to take everything that you read with a grain of salt and make sure that you take enough time looking into it and wait for more to come out about it before you make your mind up about it and really go along with it.
So I think that all has to do with like political parties too. Like Republicans usually read like Fox News, and then like Democrats read like CNN and all them. And like if you're strictly that conservative, that Democratic, you're gonna stick to one side. So then people of the side say, oh, okay, so they're only gonna believe us because they believe in this. So I mean, like you said, you need like other sides to back, you know, have both sides of whatever the argument's about. So that way it's not just all, oh, this is like Trump's a bad person, and then on Fox News he's a good person. You need all of it to gather all the facts about what's going on in the situation.
And to go off what Sarah was saying, just how everyone's trying to be the first. I think social media, I think, is probably the biggest culprit of like kind of forcing that. Because I mean, anyone with a smartphone can be a reporter. Anyone can take a picture now.
Right.
Anyone can get a video, and like you can literally be a totally random civilian, and you could potentially break like a crazy story if you're there at the right time. And everyone has Twitter, you know. Anything can blow up. So I think it's just that, yep, I gotta be first, gotta get it out there before my competitor does. So if they don't get all the facts, they just kind of start speculating, like, oh, we think around 70 people, like you said, 70 people died, and it could have been, 50, it could have been, you know what I mean? Like, it's just such, like, large gaps between, like, actual factual information and just what they're trying to throw out there, I think, so.
So you have more research about what you're talking about before you put it out there.
Definitely.
I thought of something. I was just going to say, I think one big example of that Jake was hitting on was, I think the Parkland shooting was a good example of it, because I think actually the students broke the news first before actual like news outlets heard about it, or at least like smaller localization newses that were like out of the Parkland area kind of broke that story first. Like they got tipped on it or heard about it, I think there was even one news station that was actually like within like a 5 to 10 mile radius of the actual school itself, so that a lot of people were afraid that the shooter could even move potentially into that direction. And I think that it definitely gives more power to the people, I think, in the sense that we can actually, in a way, we all are journalists in the sense that we live out our lives and we sort of, are reporting on issues and discuss topics and what we sort of deem to be like factually acceptable as a society. Definitely kind of like shows the direction I think that we're going to be moving more into the 21st century with that sort of like spectrum on things, I think.
I kind of go off of that too. Like I said, everyone can be a journalist, but that's also kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
I can take a picture and I can say, "Oh, this is what happened. This is what happened," and I have no credibility at all. I'm just a regular student. I saw, you guys know Jordan Peele, that comedian.
Yes.
He made this video. It's got circulating on Twitter. And it's just video of Obama, and it's like his mouth moving, like it's just everything. But it's the voice of Jordan Peele, but he does this like Obama impersonation. Yeah. And he's literally like, so you never know what you could be saying about, and it literally looks like Obama is saying this. And all of a sudden he goes, maybe like, and all of a sudden it's split screen and it's Jordan Peele, and it's like, oh, Jordan Peele could be saying these things, like, and it literally looked so
That's
real.
Funny.
Yeah, and the whole point of it goes, you gotta just be careful of like what you're looking for, and that I think that just really like. exemplifies like what this is all about. It's just like anything can get twisted. You know, there's so many different like apps and shit you can do now. It's just everything is just so manipulative. You know, you can literally do anything you want with it. So
like fake news is so much more popular
Yeah.
than it used to be. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like fake news happens instantly, so you just
Yep.
have to be aware of what you read.
Yep.
Like it's hard to believe anything anymore really until like it's finalized.
Yeah.
Like I saw just on Facebook earlier, it's like, oh, on May 29th, all Starbucks are closing. I don't know if you guys heard it or not. But
Yes,
they're-
because of the protests.
Yes, because of protests. And I thought, oh, that's probably fake. You know, I didn't even click on the article because of clickbait.
Yep.
So I just didn't even look at it. And then I heard people like downstairs talking about it as I was walking up here. I'm like, is that real? You know, I haven't really looked into it, but it's hard to believe if it's real
They
or not until
they
you.
actually are
until
because
you
of the
find
two
out.
that were arrested.
See, I didn't even know.
A manager called the police on 2 black men who came in and had just were sitting and waiting on a friend. They didn't order anything. They were just
Okay.
waiting.
So what is
And-
what is it? What's going on? I have
Yeah,
no
I
idea what
didn't-
this is about.
So, okay, basically, two men went and sat down in Starbucks and they were waiting on a friend. They didn't order anything, and the manager got, I mean, in no other way, he got spooked by for some reason, and he called the police, and they arrested the men. The men spent the night in jail for sitting in a Starbucks
Not doing
because they were
anything.
trespassing, and people started protesting at that Starbucks. It
wild.
got blew up. Crazy.
Where did that happen?
I think Philadelphia,
Oh, okay.
something like that.
I thought
it
this
was
was like a local situation.
no,
Yeah, I would say,
but they are closing down I think 8,000 stores.
Okay, I actually did think I
For-
saw that, but I didn't know what
Yeah,
it was
see,
about.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought maybe, oh, it's fake. People were just trying to spark controversy.
they're-
Wow.
So that's real. So that's
They are
crazy.
making them do racial bias training because they
crazy.
said that
Oh, that's who's doing the
Yeah.
racial bias thing. I heard about that, but I didn't
Yeah,
know it was
see, I did
Starbucks.
too,
I was
yep.
like, whoa.
Fake news.
Okay,
It's just
yeah.
crazy.
it was all just because someone made an assumption about these two
Yeah,
men and
that's crazy.
called the police for
Wow.
trespassing, which I mean, I don't know about you. I've went and sat in a Starbucks and not
Oh,
ordered
yeah.
I've
anything
sat
before.
Starbucks, done homework, whatever. Yeah, it's just not
and no
that
one has
deep.
ever once called the police on me, so
Yeah.
people.
That's
Freaked
wild.
out.
Yeah, it's
That's
insane
just
to
a
think
perfect-
that you can't even like people watch anymore just
Yeah,
because of
exactly,
like
yeah.
narcissists like that. Like you're just like,
Exactly.
why, man?
It's like a perfect situation. Like we all got details from different outlets, but none of us got the entire story except for like Sarah. But like, yeah, there's just so many different outlets. They just report different things. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
knew something was going on, but I didn't know it's because of that. Oh, I knew that happened, but I didn't know that this was going to be the
Yeah.
repercussions. Like, it's just people choose to report on different aspects of different stories.
I
It can
mean-
completely change it.
I know you were talking about how anyone can be a reporter, and I think a great example of that is I don't know if you guys heard about the Southwest plane yesterday, the engine.
Yeah, the
Oh yeah,
yeah, the
it got
flight.
sucked out.
Exploded.
Yeah.
And one of the engines exploded, and they had to do an emergency landing. And all of these huge news stations were chasing after this one guy that went Facebook Live when it was all happening. And he recorded the whole thing, and he was just a regular civilian. And so, like, nobody has a lot of the information still. I mean, they won't release anything on who died and what happened to them. And
I thought
there
I
was
seen
one.
an article of the girl who was like sucked in. or
Yeah,
something.
see, I
I'm
saw like a
what
girl got
the
sucked
heck?
out of a window.
Yeah,
like,
ironically,
what?
the plane also landed in Philadelphia, I think, which was
Really?
one of the same.
Philly's
It's
just
the,
not
yeah, I know, it's
crazy.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of those things where nobody knew what was going on, and everyone was going after this one guy who just
Yep.
made a video. And I mean,
Yep.
he's not a credible person. Nobody knows
Just a
who
guy
he was
chilling.
before
Yeah, right.
yesterday. And I mean, then CNN and Fox News and everybody was after this one guy's video.
Yep.
And so you gotta watch, because he made that video while he was spooked, thinking he was gonna die because the plane was falling out of the
Yep.
air. Like he was. I remember him. There was something about him saying that there was blood everywhere, and then that you see pictures, and I
No.
never saw anything that had to do with that. And so it was just like, you got to be careful,
Yeah.
because a lot of times when stuff like this happens, they go after civilians who have these videos and they say these things, but in the end, unless that airline comes out with the investigation explaining what happened, you never really know.
Yeah.
So you definitely got to watch people who are their own reporters and aren't
Yeah.
really considered credible,
Yeah.
because you never
Good.
know what actually happened until an investigation has
Yeah.
went on.
Because the thing with that, like, if you're just a guy chilling there, you don't really care about getting the facts straight. You don't care if you're credible. You just, I
He
want to get
just
my
thought he
name
was
out there.
gonna
Yep,
die.
I'm gonna get. Yeah.
I mean,
And even after the fact, like, oh yeah, there was blood everywhere, all this crazy stuff. Well, he's gonna be on CNN, he's gonna be on Fox,
he's gonna be
again on
famous
the
for it
Ellen
just
show.
for saying
Yeah, it's gonna
stuff.
exactly.
Right.
So like, I mean, just like that's just like his own brand identity. He's like, all right, well, I did this, this, and this. I don't care, we're all fine, but here's my story. You know what I mean? So he's just trying to promote himself. So I think that's probably like a big reason too. Is just like people just trying to promote the wrong things. But
Yeah, you could even say that like exaggeration probably played like a really big factor into that.
Yeah.
Like it's insane that the guy is reporting that there was like blood everywhere, but like so many like pictures from the actual like airplane, like I don't know what you would exactly call it, like collapsation maybe, like with.
I mean, just the scene
Yeah.
of it.
Major
Yeah.
technical
Major
Yeah.
technical difficulties.
yeah.
Like it's insane that just the fake or the amount of like blood that was supposedly shed over this
You
crash.
would think you
Yeah.
need to add
Yeah,
facts
yeah.
to that. Like,
Exactly.
a woman getting sucked out of an airplane, like, what do you need to doll this up for? Like, it's
I
pretty
mean,
good as it is.
I saw the picture of the window that had exploded, and it was literally there was no blood by
That's
that window
wild.
whatsoever. And I mean, of course, they hadn't touched it because there's going to be an investigation on
Yeah.
it.
Right.
So you got to watch
Yep.
what people say because it's not always factual.
It just come. Oh, sorry.
It's kind of crazy too, like with the whole Starbucks thing. Like you'll never know what we'll see the next few days. Like, oh, well, these people were being rude, or they had a gun. People who make up anything just for like, just to spark people's attention. Like, I'm sure there'll be a headline somewhere. Investigation
Cashiers
finds
felt
out that
threatened by.
yeah, they were threatened
individuals.
because he had a fork in his, or something stupid, when they actually weren't doing anything. Just
Yeah.
so that people can read and talk about it, because that's what fake news. That's all it does. It just
Yep.
causes issues, I think.
The one thing with that situation that Starbucks handled very well was they got out ahead of that very quickly and made their own statements. So yes, their statements can be changed into whatever the certain news stations want them to be, but at the same time, Starbucks did a great job of trying to get out ahead of that this time.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna say, it just comes to show you that like it's a good thing that we have these safety precautions put into place. You never think you really need to use them, and then little did we know this flight from out of Dallas.
Yep.
I'm sure at least half of that flight didn't even pay attention to the liftoff instructions.
Oh, yeah,
they were
no,
like,
they're
yeah,
just chilling.
yeah, because sure you have to do it for like safety precaution and safety reasons, but no one actually is gonna think, I'm gonna go into a plane crash today. Let's
Yeah.
let's put these to the test.
The thing that cracked me up about all of that actually was they go over those safety. They go over the safety precautions before every single flight, and I got to see the pictures of the man that everybody was after because he had the videos and the photos, and somebody commented on it, and he made a great point. They all had their oxygen masks on incorrectly. Every
Really?
single one of them had it on incorrectly, and somebody was like, who would have thought after all this time,
Yeah.
you've heard it how many times and you still don't know how to wear the
Yeah, right.
oxygen mask right? It was kind of funny to see that. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that somebody has been able to make it's just weird that even though none of us were on that plane, you can see everything that went on with that, just because social media is kind of its own form of news, I guess,
Yep.
because you get more from that than most news stations sometimes.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add?
No.
I think we're good. Do we hit on everything?
I think we're
so.
cool, guys.
Okay,
So that's
cool.
good news.
Right on.